Hi, Gary Stearman with another commentary on this Monday, the 23rd of November. I hope you're having a great day and a great holiday season. Wanted to share something with you that I find very, very curious. This is from the Associated Press My Way news service, dated November 21st, and it's written by Ali-Akbar Darani. It is a bulletin out of Tehran, Iran, and I think you'll be interested in this story, and it begins as follows. Thousands of paramilitary forces from the country's powerful Revolutionary Guard have held a war game simulating the capture of Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque from Israeli control. War games to scale the Temple Mount. How about that? And by the way, they even created a replica, if you will, of the Temple Mount area. And they plan on, I presume, someday on scaling the mountain and taking it back in the name of Allah. But this is fascinating. Iran's state media reported last Saturday that the forces stormed and quote-unquote liberated a replica of the mosque in the exercise. They say that 120 brigades from the Basij area, from the Basij, that is the paramilitary unit of the Revolutionary Guard, participated in Friday's exercise outside the holy city of Qom in central Iran. I think it's fascinating that with everything else going on, the Iranians took the time to set up a mock Temple Mount, to set up forces, and then to scale the Temple Mount, hopefully to capture it in the name of Allah. The symbolic operations were backed up by Guard helicopters, drones, and Tucano airplanes that bombed hypothetical enemy positions before ground troops captured the replica of the mosque set up at the top of the mountain. Now, the next paragraph in this article is really interesting. This is why I'm reading this. This is fascinating. Here's the next paragraph. In a common mistake, that is, in a common mistake, the Guard set up a replica of the gold-topped Dome of the Rock instead of the nearby mosque. So Ali-Akbar Darani, in writing this story, interprets the military exercises held by the Iranians as mistaken in that they were not scaling the replica mountain to capture the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They were scaling it to capture the Dome of the Rock. And he says, well, that was just a mistake. Can you understand what he's saying here? What he's saying is, don't think that they want to scale the Temple Mount to take possession of the mountain itself. All they're after is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And they just made a little mistake in actually scaling the mountain and pretending to take back the Mosque of Omar, that is the gold-topped dome. Official photos showed one of the troops going to the top of the dome and waving an Iranian flag and a red-colored flag, the symbol of martyrdom. And so they actually taped this exercise, and they've got one brave Iranian soldier who scaled the Mosque of Omar replica with its gold dome, and he went up there with a red flag, which is the flag of martyrdom. But, says Ali-Akbar Darani, that was a mistake. What they were really going after was the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The hilltop compound, which is holy to Jews and Muslims, has been at the heart of weeks of unrest between Israel and the Palestinians. Muslims call the spot the Noble Sanctuary, and the mosque is Islam's third holiest site after Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. Jews revere the spot as the Temple Mount, home to the biblical temples and the holiest site in Judaism. Friends, it was no mistake that they were after the gold dome, the Mosque of Omar, and that they actually went up there with the red flag of martyrdom. That's what they're after. And that is a holy site to them. And the fact that they're rehearsing scaling that mountain, I think is just fascinating. I have here a copy of a guide to Al-Haram al-Sharif, which is what the Arab-speaking Muslims call the Temple Mount. Al-Haram al-Sharif roughly translates to the Noble Sanctuary, or perhaps to the highly respected sanctuary. And what I'm holding in my hands here was printed in 1924 in Jerusalem, published by the Supreme Muslim Council, and it has a very interesting opening paragraph about the Al-Haram al-Sharif. It says, its sanctity dates from the earliest, perhaps prehistoric times. Its identity with the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute. Now you notice that. They say its identity with the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute. This was written by the Arab Council. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem oversaw the production of this copy of this booklet that I'm holding in my hands here. This too is the spot, according to the universal belief, on which David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. This was written by Arabs, by the way. But for the purposes of this guide, which confines itself to the Muslim period, the starting point is the year 637 A.D. In that year, Caliph Omar occupied Jerusalem, and one of his first acts was to repair this site, which had already become sacred in the eyes of Muslims as the place which the prophet, that would be the Prophet Muhammad, was one night miraculously translated. That is, he was taken into the heavens on his steed, Al-Buraq, and they call it a translation. That is a metamorphosing into the spirit world. The Caliph and his 4,000 followers found little more than desolation and rubbish when they came to this spot. There were the ruined walls of the Herodian and Roman periods, the remains of an early basilica, probably on the present site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the bare rock. As yet, the dome of the rock had not been built there. And the bare rock, says this. Yet, from this rock had the prophet, according to tradition, ascended to heaven on his steed. Well, this is the background of what we have come to call the Temple Mount. And the background of this AP News report, dated November 21st, is most fascinating because the Iranians actually set up a mock military exercise, complete with all of the machines of war, aircraft, helicopters, and so forth, scaled the mountaintop and stood atop the Dome of the Rock with the red flag. Amazing to me that they are doing this. Why would they be practicing such a thing? Well, in the Bible, Psalm 87 says this: his foundation is in the holy mountains. This is a psalm written about Mount Zion. And it was a psalm written for the sons of Korah. That is, it's a song. It is a recitation. His foundation is in the holy mountains. The Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of thee, O city of God. Now, we've read this before many times. I'm reading it in the context of this recent Iranian military exercise. The idea of a military exercise against the holy mountain is literally scaling the mountain of God, flying in the face of God, if you will. And I'm sure the Lord takes it that way. The Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Up there on that mountaintop, in addition to the Mosque of Omar and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, you also have gates and the ruins of the old gates, such as the Sheep Gate and the Gate of the Corner and the Horse Gate and the Eastern Gate. There are many, many gates on Mount Zion, and it is Mount Zion, by the way, and it is at the top of the mountain because that's the way it's always described in Scripture. And I want to go back now to Psalm 48, which, by the way, I read very, very often. And that psalm says it all for me. Great is the Lord, greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. The mountain of his holiness is the same mountain we've been discussing during the last few minutes. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion. on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. And so the city of the great king, of course, Jerusalem, Mount Zion. The strange phrase in here refers to Mount Zion on the sides of the north. And if you look at an aerial map of what is called Mount Zion, and you ascend to the north, that is northward, out of the city of David, up to the top of the mountain. And when you get up there, you come to what today is the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. But to the north of that, you have the remains of the old gates, like the Gate of the Corner, the Sheep Gate, the Damascus Gate, and the Eastern Gate. But those are all at the north end, if you will, of that mountain. And so let me reread this again. Great is the Lord, greatly to be praised, in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness, beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge. Wow. For lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together. They saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled, and they hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain, as of a woman in travail. Every time you read that phrase in the Bible, pain as a woman in travail, you're always reading metaphorically about the birth pangs of regathered latter-day Israel. And you're always reading about the struggles of the Jews to establish their temple on their Temple Mount. The struggle goes on. When we were recently there, I was struck by the number of tourists I saw from every country in the world. You can go up to that Temple Mount and hear every language on planet Earth. And that's why this phrase that I just read amazes me. The second verse of Psalm 48 says, beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. You stand there today, and it literally is the joy of the whole earth. People from everywhere come just to set foot on that mountain and to think about all the things that have happened there and all the things that are set to happen again. And by the way, the Iranians, back to this news article from November 21st, the Iranians holding mock battles, complete with a mock-up of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. They're setting up a battle designed to take that mountain back. They're serious. The fight goes on. Thought you might enjoy hearing about what's happening in the world. You know, big things are getting ready to happen, and they are things that we read about in the Bible. Think about this. I'm Gary Stearman. Keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.